All right. Well, I know the Nuggets and the Suns are coming up here in a bit, probably about 30 minutes, but just spend a little time with us. It's Sunday night and it's your usual friendly neighborhood basket bros. Let us get your evening started. I am your moderator, Denzel Snipes. We have a loaded show for you, and also we got a guest coming on as well. Our here to discuss our Basket Bros legend and among other stuff as well. You guys got the advertisement. If you are tuning in to us on one of the platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, just know that you can reach us through the other three. So please hit the like and subscribe button on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and so forth. But you know what? Let's get the guys in here. Our first guy is coming all the way by way of Quincy, Illinois. He resides in Atlanta, Georgia, and he recently took second place in the Vince McMahon lookalike contest. Give it up for Jacob Christner.
Well, all I can say is congratulations to JT for the game-winning shot today. But I did say the Sixers in 6, and I'm not Sixers, the Celtics in 6, and I'm not too wrong often. So this is their last. This was their last win. So enjoy it while they can.
This is the second time that James Harden has crushed dreams in this series.
I'll give him this. It's like he also had 2 really bad games, so he can't keep the consistency up. But give him this. He never did this in playoffs. So at least he's got somewhere. But the thing is, he just had 2 horrible games also.
Yeah, he did, but you know what? He came through when they needed him today. He sent the game to overtime and he won the game. So
that's the last one. So have fun with it.
Yeah, we'll see. Remains to be seen. And coming up next on the screen by way of Connecticut, he resides in Charlotte, North Kakalaki. Will Vogel, DJ Willie V. Come on in here.
Yeah, right.
What's up, gentlemen?
It's going to be a very special Basketbros legend moment, and I will most definitely run that surprise that we got for everybody. Otherwise, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. It's funny. I had a scraggly, scruffy beard. I grew up and then I was like, man, I need a shave before the show. But yeah, I'm doing great.
Awesome. And then also, he this one coming up, he is the architect of the South Florida Tribune. So please go check him out on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, South Florida Tribune. He's got 108 stitches. He's got the Sports Exchange. He's got a lot of great stuff for you. And he covers the Marlins in his local South Florida area. Give it up for Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. Come on in here.
Hey, by the way, no one told us that he got the 108 stitches because Candy got tired of him working.
Exactly.
Well, let me pull something out here, folks. I'm wearing a Wake Forest Demon Deacon shirt.
Nice.
Oh, man.
And you know why I'm wearing it? Because one of these days you're going to talk about Chris Paul, who, by the way, went there. And one of my friends' birthday, National Sports Media Association, his name is Dave Gorin. And Danny Manning is a guy that actually coached there. So how about that? There's a little bit of a segue here about where we're going with it. So, I'm a deacon tonight, and don't get used to the hatless look. I went over to your local John Deere store and had it chopped off by one of those things called a lawnmower. No, I wouldn't say that or I wouldn't be here. But anyways, that's the closest thing I could get to this buzz cut.
You should have seen my hair before the lawnmower.
Yeah,
but mine's pretty obvious. Mine looks like that thing called a coconut that you go ahead and see it when you're on the desert island. So don't get the hatless look tonight was why I wanted to pull it out of here.
Yeah, he's usually got the hat on. And Will, how far do you stay from Wake Forest University?
Oh, you're about an hour and a half.
2.5 hours.
That's not bad. Because I know Wake Forest, Duke, and North Carolina, and UNC, they're in that tri university.
I know.
Area.
Someone wrote a book I need to read. It's called The Four Corners of Basketball. It's about Wake, Carolina, Duke, and State basketball. And my friend's dad wrote it. So, yeah, I need to read it.
I've taken that drive from Charlotte to Winston-Salem. It's not that long of a drive. It's easy.
It's not bad.
All right. Well, we go ahead and wait, we got one more. Y'all thought that it was just us. We got one more. He's another king of Detroit. Come on in here, George Eichhorn.
I thought you forgot about me.
We forget about Sir George here. How you doing tonight, sir?
I'm not going to talk about my hair either because it's been gray for a while. But the guy to my right here, he never put any gray hair on my head. His name is Scott. We've known each other for 43 years.
And not one gray hair. That's a hell of an undefeated streak.
No, I may not have put them on yours, but you put them on mine.
Oh, yes. Many Piston games, we put gray hairs on you. I
Oh,
know.
didn't we
Hey,
ever?
George,
man.
tell me he doesn't look like C.D. Parker from Walker, Texas Ranger, the old one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a little resemblance.
I don't know who these people are, so it's like a foreign language to me. but whatever.
No, Noble Willingham. Noble
We're
Willingham.
happy here in Motown. Again, another season and another no playoffs for the Detroit Pistons, but we're happy.
Yeah, we still have 3 titles. It's not the worst thing
That's
in the
right.
world. Lots of them are looking for their first.
Hey, Jacob, if it makes you feel any better, you actually could go out for a Hans Gruber stunt double.
Well, you know something? The big thing about it is the fact I just need to cut my hair a little bit and go back over, you know? It's like I already got the beard going.
Yeah. Hey, you know Alan Rickman actually, because he actually made he cut his teeth doing stage. His first film was Die Hard at the age of 40. It's crazy.
Oh, no, he was the cool. No, Alan Rickman was as cool as it gets.
Yeah, and actually a little known fact: the final scene when he gets dropped from the skyscraper, that actually was a green room take. They decided to actually keep that for the actual performance. That was a tryout take that he had. And the surprised look on his face was of genuine shock because Bruce Willis apparently dropped him sooner than expected because they had a countdown going, but he actually dropped him sooner. So the look on his face was like genuine. Yeah, but that was a little movie, did you know? But we're going to go ahead and get started here. Once again, at the bottom of the screen, if you take a look, you tune in, Sideline Sports on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And let's go on to our first topic. And I most certainly hope Scott has drank his Mountain Dew for this one because our Basketbro
Larry Bone
is.
Larry Bone?
Oh, shoot. That I did miss an R. 1 second. Our Basketbros legend.
Well, I had the Mountain Dew, but my wife.
Brown.
I had the Mountain Dew, but my wife cut me off at 6 o'clock, and I'm on water now. But she said, "You've had enough, anyways." And when I went out to eat for lunch, I had a few Diet Coke. So you put all those chemicals in, and you have a lively motor mouth tonight.
Oh yeah, you're definitely on RoboCop mode right now.
There we go.
It gets worse later, let me tell you.
I was thinking
Yeah.
Larry Boa. I was thinking you were trying to say Larry Boa from the Eagles.
Larry Boa, yeah, he was like was a great value Larry Brown. No, this is the real Larry Brown. He most definitely is, in my opinion, a top 5 coach in NBA history. But let's take a look into who this man exactly was. And let's see, he actually played ball. He was selected in the 7th round in the 1962 draft by the Baltimore Bullets. As a player, he actually played for the New Orleans Buccaneers in the ABA. He also played for the Oakland Oaks, the Washington Caps, the Virginia Squires, and then he also finished his career as a player with the Denver Rockets. As a coach, he's got a resume. He's been assistant coach at North Carolina. He coached the Carolina Cougars, Denver Nuggets. Then he went over to the college side and coached UCLA for 3 years. Then he went back to the NBA, coached the New Jersey Nets. Then went back to the college route and coached over at Kansas. Then came he just went back and forth. He's done time in San Antonio, Los Angeles Clippers, the Indiana Pacers, Philadelphia 76ers, the Detroit Pistons, and I'm waiting on the 2 bottom guys' commentary on that one. He also coached the Knicks and also, of course, the Charlotte Bobcats. And speaking of which, that reminds me, if you all would just hold for just a few seconds, because this is the surprise that I have for everybody. So if you would just so graciously look on the screen, that is our very own
Will's dad?
Vogel.
Will's dad?
You know what? If that's your dad, you most definitely come from money, dude, and you got a legend for a father. But that is our very own Will Vogel, who met Larry Brown, and we actually are going to start off a commentary with him so he can tell us about that. But getting into his highlights and awards, as a player, he was an ABA champion, a 3-time ABA All-Star. He was ABA All-Star most valuable player. He has 3 assist titles in the ABA. He made all ABA second team. In college, he made all ACC and second team all ACC. As coach, he was an NBA champion in 2004. He won Coach of the Year in 2001. A 2-time NBA All-Star Game head coach, a 3-time ABA Coach of the Year. He's a top 15 coach in NBA history. In college, he won He won a national championship. That was with Kansas in 1988. Am I right? I am correct. Yes, with Kansas. He was Naismith College Coach of the Year in 1988. He's a two-time Big 8 tournament champion, a Big 8 regular season champion, and of course he is in the Basketball Hall of Fame as a coach, and he's in the College Basketball Hall of Fame as well.
Hey, Dan, before you go further, don't forget, I believe he coached at UCLA as well.
He did coach at UCLA. Let me see here. He coached from 1979 to 1981. So and more commentary. I'm pretty sure George and Scott are going to elaborate on this. Pretty sure that people felt like when he won the NBA championship in 2004 that was just the pinnacle of everything. He spent so long in the business, and this was him getting his crown. This may even be akin to Dusty Baker finally getting his ring. It was, Larry Brown finally got his ring. You know what I mean? A top 15 coach. He's coached some of the absolute greatest. Man, you know what? I just want to pass the mic because I'm anxious to hear about Will, and I'm pretty sure you remember when he was a Bobcats head coach, and I want to hear about this time you randomly ran into him at the gas station or wherever it is you met him. Pass it on to Will Vogel. Your thoughts on head coach Larry Brown?
So actually, ironically, I met him after a Hornets game. I was walking around trying to meet players and whatever just to see how they leave. Like the arena, I've always been interested, like how they leave, where they park at the parking garage, whatever. And I actually was waiting for some players, and I stumbled upon Coach Brown, talked to him for a few minutes. He was a really cool guy. I actually also met the Hornets were playing the Celtics, so I met Robert Williams that night as well. And as you could tell, it was pouring down rain. My glasses were fogged up. My hair was in a mess. But yeah, it was really cool meeting Coach Brown. Ironically, I was given this book from some woman I worked with. She worked with us in one of our departments, and she worked for the Bobcats, and she had a bunch of old Bobcat stuff. So this is a media guide from 2008 with Larry Brown on it. It also has Gerald Wallace, Raymond Felton, Emeka Okafor, and everyone forgets he's a Bobcat, Jason Richardson.
Yep. He sure was.
But yeah, very cool guy. Fun facts about Larry Brown as a Bobcat, and then I'll do two that are really cool facts. He coached on the Bobcats from 2008 to 2010. He led the Bobcats to the first postseason in franchise history. They got swept by the Magic in the first round. It's his 8th team he led to the postseason, which is a record for the most teams anyone's ever led. They parted ways in 2010 when the team started 9-19. The whole coaching staff was fired. He had communication issues with Jordan and was quoted in saying the culture was full of spies and people that made him sick. And two more facts about him. 35 former players and assistants that worked or played for Larry Brown went on to become head coaches in the NBA or the NCAA, which is huge. Speaks of the magnitude of how giant of an influence Larry Brown was. Those include, I'll just name 3 real quick: Bill Self, Greg Popovich, and Doc Rivers. And fun fact, he is the only guy to play and coach Team USA basketball. But yeah, like what I said about the 35 players and assistants, that just speaks of the coaching tree, the magnitude, the larger than life person that Larry Brown was on the basketball court. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Absolutely, and really great that you just randomly ran into him. Just like when I covered the Roughnecks, and I just popped up, and bam, there's Rod Woodson. But absolutely, want to swing it over to Jacob. Your thoughts on head coach Larry Brown?
Well, first things first is he had to coach UCLA fresh, and that 5 years is still fresh at the time, fresh from John Wooden. I mean, he was gone by 74, and that's 5 years still fresh. They'd won 10 and 12 years. Then he retires. Could you imagine how many people were telling Wooden, please come back?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, and you had to do that. But here, another thing that gets me with Larry Brown is just think of it for a second here. This just shows the difference between the ABA and the NBA. Because I saw Larry Brown in the NBA the whole time. I never got to see ABA, obviously. I'm born in 78. So, I mean, but you get my point. And so I never see it. All I knew Larry Brown was just a nicely dressed dude, just, church on Sunday. You know what I mean? But look at all of the costumes he made in the ABA.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the overalls. Look at the pinstripe suits. Look at the everything. And it completely shows the difference between the NBA and the ABA. One had a different type of vibe, but it was a show. And
Mm-hmm.
I had no clue Larry Brown was like that until I saw all those pictures. I would have thought he was just like a church deacon.
Yeah.
Just because of the way he would dress in the NBA. But let me tell you this about him is the fact that the one thing I think about the most is defense.
Of course.
Defensive guy, not in complete knowledge of the thing, and the defense and an absolute teacher. And isn't he assistant to this day?
I don't think so.
Well,
I think it's
I think he's actually out of basketball.
He's a little bit of a break.
But
yeah, he was working with Memphis as an advisor to Penny Hardaway, is what he was doing.
Okay,
so
yeah, I thought so.
I think he's
But
taking
just
a little break. Who knows?
Over 8, still working like that and still making the thing. It just, what it shows though? That shows if he's working past that age, it means it's like the whole idea of Joe Paterno way back when with the Penn State. He was about to be out of college football, and then he decided to go to those coaching seminars and find out what it really was. Mm-hmm. He built his own. He built his own people, built his own thing, came right back. That looks like what. That exactly looks like what Larry Brown does because he keeps getting hired. He understands the changes in the NBA. He understands the changes in coaching, and the coaching and everything. So he gets hired. You won't see Doug. I'll just say Doug Moe, for instance. You wouldn't see some of the old ones from that thing do that anymore.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Larry Brown, and when you look at the scope of his career, he always was the one that hung around.
Yep.
College pro. I just went through everybody that he was ever with, right? And ultimately, and you mentioned defense, because immediately what comes to mind is the 04 Pistons, and how that team, and I tell people this to this day, this is a team with no real superstar, and they ended the Shaq and Kobe dynasty. Will, we've talked about this before, me and you, but I want to bring it to our two Detroit natives on the bottom, starting first with our guest, George Eichhorn, and your thoughts on head coach Larry Brown.
Well, Larry was certainly an interesting guy to have on the Piston sidelines. You're right, Denzel. 2004, the championship with Billups and Hamilton and Ben Wallace and the gang. And I'll tell you what, Larry was a consummate pro. He really was. And I'm glad you brought that up, Jacob, about defense, because we see so little of that in today's NBA. And Larry was a consummate pro. And, another interesting thing is, believe it or not, his brother coached the Pistons as head coach before he did. Yeah. So Herbie Brown succeeded a guy named Ray Scott back in the 1970s, and when the Pistons still played downtown in a place called Cobo Arena, Herb Brown was the head coach of the Pistons, and not too good Pistons teams back then. And then his brother Larry comes full circle, and he becomes head coach. And Larry hired Herb Brown to be one of his assistants here in Detroit. So it's quite an interesting situation. But unfortunately, guys, it ended on a sour note, and Scott probably will talk about this a little bit too, because owner Bill Davidson had enough of Larry Brown, okay? Right. After Detroit lost to San Antonio in the 2005 finals, all these rumors were going around that Larry was looking at the Cleveland Cavaliers presidency job. He was talking about the New York Knicks and how that would be the perfect job to coach New York. And the Pistons finally had enough and pulled the plug on Larry Brown. It was a bold move by Bill Davidson and President Tom Wilson, but they were sick and tired of Larry's courting other teams. So, I mean, you talk about it, and yeah, it is a good thing, but in the situation with Detroit, they had enough, and they could have used that for other reasons too, which I'm not privy to. But I know Scott remembers those days as well.
Yeah. To coach the Knicks, I know he was looking at that, and I know it's Larry Brown, but you can't help thinking. Now, mind you, this is of course prior to like the Knicks now that just started making the playoffs. And even then in 04 they made the playoffs, but for so long that had just been like that toxic environment, and it's like if you became a Knicks coach, that was kind of like a dead end job. That almost was like your graveyard. You know what I mean? So to a certain extent, I'm glad he didn't go there, but that's just me. But I want to pass it on to Scott and round this whole topic up. But give us your thoughts real quick on Larry Brown.
Well, let me double back to what George said. Okay, it's joined the NBA after the merger. Herb Brown on the Pistons had Larry Brown. It was pretty heavily talked about back home in Detroit, number one. Number two, rule number one, don't ever tell an owner that your dream's in New York Knicks, because be careful what you ask for. You might take $5 million and get the heck out of town. Okay, you don't do that. But did you know that Larry Brown in a movie that you guys didn't even mention in the intro? Did you?
Who was that?
I'm missing this one, right? I got a bunch of people that are so puzzled. I have as good a poker face as Rick Carlisle did when he was roaming the sidelines. Well, all right, let's go back to Kansas. Okay, he played the pilot of a movie as coach of the movie Rambo when Danny Manning carried the heavy underdog Kansas Jayhawks to that incredible upset win over Oklahoma. So, oh, come on, guys, it's Sunday night. You said I had a lot of Mountain Dew. I can't disappoint my pizza. I can't do it, and I won't do it. Don't have the hair. The Mountain Dew. So, anyways, he played the pilot of the movie Rambo, and Danny Manning went out there and killed the Sooners. Okay. So the reality is this. But I wonder what a lot of people will know Larry Brown for. How about the rant with Allen Iverson? Practice. I'll just do my deal in the game, not practice. Okay. And what did Larry Brown do without Allen Iverson? Not a whole heck of a lot, because I'll tell you, Allen Iverson could play on my team. I had the opportunity many years ago to interview Iverson and Jerry Stackhouse, and they both subsequently went to Detroit. So, the reality is he's a heck of a coach. I'd like to know a trivia question as to what mover he used during all those millions of moves, because I tell you what, you talk about digital business, sure, that mover's good. So, yeah, no, and let's not lose sight, he's the only coach in a NCAA championship and an NBA championship. So how do you not have him as a legend for cotton picking sakes? There's not another coach.
Right.
I think, all those things talk about what it all stands out. I mean, come on, really. I mean, Larry, okay, professional mover, okay. Or was that I'm trying to think of the old movie, What We'll Do Today. Anybody know what? Oh, God almighty. I'm thinking, I guarantee I'll have it at the end. I don't know. Now I'm going nuts here. But the analogy is he's moved around. He's won everywhere, okay? And the reality is he should have never left Detroit. He should have kept it. And there's a point where you can stay in a place more than 2, 3, 4 years without lighting up a firestorm, because unfortunately that move didn't work out for either side. Okay. Larry Brown was never the same after he left Detroit. Detroit brought in Flip Saunders after that, and Flip Saunders had to go out there and do the best he could without tinkering with the chemistry of the team. They won a lot of games under Flip Saunders, but his hands were tied, and subsequently down the line he eventually passed away. Rest in peace, Flip. So the Pistons haven't won a title since Brown's there, okay? And Brown's never been incredible on the coaching. He's bounced around a lot. He kind of reminds me of the real basketball coaches, if you think about it, but only on the pro level. Rick Pitino tends to move around, so does Larry Brown. So what else can I say? I mean, when you're a championship-winning coach, did Larry Brown ever heard of the idea of, let's try to repeat? Well, evidently he didn't. Okay, he was just looking to get some frequent flyer miles and test his test his skills in the Big Apple, and he turned out to be a rotten apple. So I've used every analogy in my repertoire, and then maybe I'll think of that brain thing that I'm missing. But the point is he moved around a lot. He won a couple championships, and nobody could take away winning an NCAA and NBA title away, regardless of what you want to say with the guy. But he's also left a couple programs in probation too, though. Not like he left them completely clean. So, you think about it. Okay, Larry Brown was the ideal. He knew how to win, but nowadays a lot of coaches cheat anyways. Can you imagine what he would be like in this area where you have the transfer portal?
Oh boy, yeah.
It makes you wonder, though, doesn't it?
It does.
Of course, in his case, he was part of the coaching transfer portal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they'll be like, he could transfer. I
You
want
guys
to
a little
transfer.
wild.
One thing. Did you say that he won a ABA ring in the 70s?
He did, yes.
Guess what? You know what that means? Between player and coach, he won a ring in 4 different decades.
Yes, he did.
70s, 80s, 2004. That is
Yes, he did.
only ever do it.
Only one. He won a ring in every on both sides of college and pro. Yeah. Definitely.
And-
like I said, go ahead, Scott.
And you know what laundry detergent he used to use when he was cleaning his suits?
What's that?
Let's see if anybody can guess. Ring around
Tide?
the collar.
Tide.
Ring around the collar.
That's whisk, I think it's right. Remember a ring around the collar whisk when I'm kidding with you. How many shirts did he go through and all those stuff? Ring around the collar to go at the championship ring. Sorry, guys. I'm loaded today. You hit it, Dens. The Mountain Dew is having a effect, and you guys know that's my gasoline. And I guarantee you one thing: you don't charge $3.5, $4 a gallon for this. If you're lucky, you can get it for $2. Although if I were living in the Carolinas,
as a sponsor,
We should.
We should. Hey, listen, if I were in Charlotte, I'd be drinking Sundrop, and I'd be 100 times worse than I am now. And you guys can only let your imagination come out. I'll have Will Vogel send me a case of Diet
To me,
Sundrop,
I look at him as the Billy Martin of pro basketball and college basketball. Moved around all those times, left a little dirt behind in some cities. He's like Billy Martin was for so many years in baseball.
Hey, less bar fighting. Fighting.
Yeah, I mean but he won everywhere he went. He may not have, left some of those in such good terms, but they couldn't outright hate the guy if he won them a ring, So
right.
But
True.
we're about halfway point through the show. Awesome commentary on head coach Larry Brown. So on our next topic, and I did this because the Heat and the Knicks are obviously in the second round right now, and it's the revival of the Heat-Knicks rivalry. So we're going to take a trip back to the 1999 first round, Game 5. The Knicks become just the second 8th seed to eliminate a 1 seed with Allen Houston's clinching shot versus the Heat. So New York had possession trailing 77-76. It was just under 5 seconds remaining. Allen Houston caught the inbound pass and hit a running floater that bounced off the front rim and fell through. And, it was appropriate to bring this up also because, the Heat just knocked off a number 1 seed. We're going to get to more of that on the next topic. But this is most definitely an awesome moment in the Heat-Knicks rivalry as well as in NBA history because it's not often that an 8 seed knocks off a 1 seed, even if this was a strike-shortened season. But first, I want to start off with Will. Your thoughts about I know, Allen Houston, regardless of how people thought of him as a player, this was a great moment in his career and in Knicks history as well. But your thoughts on this Basketbros moment in time?
Yeah, it was a great shot. It was a great shot. Anytime an 8 seed beats a 1 seed or a 16 seed beats a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, it's always a thrill. But let me give you a little background behind this rivalry. I know we're talking about Allen Houston, but this is the third installment of 4 consecutive playoff matchups between these two teams.
It sure was.
4 straight times they would meet in the playoffs. Insanity. Talk about a war. The next round, the Knicks swept the Hawks. Then they beat the Pacers in 6. And then then they would win the Eastern Conference, and it would be their second East title in 5 years. and they are the first and only 8th seed to
make the NBA
reach
Finals.
the NBA Finals.
Absolutely.
It was a lockout year. There was only 50 games. They barely snuck in. In the offseason, they acquired Marcus Camby and Latrell Sprewell. And you know who was traded to get Latrell Sprewell? John Starks.
Starks. An aging John Starks.
And the aging John Starks. And they would lose the NBA Finals to the Spurs. I want to say Patrick Ewing was still on the team at that point. An older Patrick Ewing. And they also signed free agents Kirk Thomas and Dennis Scott. But yeah, talk about a rivalry. Like, yeah, we know the Celtics Lakers, the Celtics Pistons, the Celtics Hawks, like all these rivalries in the NBA. This one, I would say, is probably in my top 5 rivalries of all time. Is it number 1? No, because I think it's Celtics Lakers all time. But this definitely, anytime they play each other, you know it's going to be intense.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, let me
as
mention something to you. It came back to me. Go Gophers is what it was and what I was trying to anticipate.
Go Gophers. Okay. Go.
That's I'm sorry to interrupt you, Will. I hope you were done, but
No,
when I
I'm
get
done.
something on my mind and it's really eating me up, I don't want to leave the show without Go Gophers.
No, I
And
know.
that's-
No,
Yeah.
I can promise you I'll never be on American Idol for my singing with that rendition, but Go Gophers at least will let me sleep a little easier tonight because I didn't forget it. So, all right,
Yeah.
whoever's next. But I had to put that in.
And as far as the great rivalries you mentioned, the ones on the bottom screen here may argue Pistons Bulls as an intense rivalry. But
that was an intense rivalry. That was up there too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I want to swing it over to Jacob and your thoughts on this Basketbro moment in time.
Just think about the teams they had to go beat to begin with, sweeping the next round. Then they take Birds Pacers out, which we might have another thing on that. They take Birds Pacers out in 6, which I personally thought that 4-point play was BS when I was watching it, in Madison Square Garden. But the Knicks had a run and a half in this life. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes this reminds me of the NHL. It reminds me of the NHL. What you get your 65 wins Boston Bruins, and you get Boston Bruins, and then they are out. And it's like that's what happened with the number 1 seed. That's what happens with that, and then someone sneaks in. The Knicks snuck that year. They snuck in. They kind of backed their way in, but then got hot. And that is an absolute reason why I don't like tanking in any sport.
Right.
You just don't know. You don't know if there's the Packers with Aaron Rodgers in 1 year, just like in the 6th seed and taking 3 to get to the Super Bowl, 3 road games.
And before you continue, I know of another New York team that barely sneaked in the playoffs and got hot and won it all on 2 different occasions.
Giants. Yeah,
Continue.
But my point. There will be people that keep wanting to tank all the time, like fans will want to tank all the time, but you just don't know where your Knicks like this are. You don't know what the thing is. Of course, there's more of them that don't make it, but this one, there's more that don't make it, obviously, but you just never know.
Right.
And the Knicks that year, every bit of it, you got to realize how much of a thing that was that Allen Houston shot was because they swept and then went to 6 on a superior Pacers team. You get hot at the right time.
You
get hot at the right time, and it's like, and guess what? We didn't see that for years after. Because before that, it was like 94, you got the 8th seed, you got Denver, but then they got beat in the next round.
Yeah.
So it's like, you just don't know, but it's like, it's so rare, but you can see it. And it's like, somebody just gets hot. And I definitely didn't see that coming myself.
And you know what? One could argue, if even just a little bit, if they play anybody else other than the Spurs in the finals, they're probably the first 8 seed to win it all. But they ran into David Robinson, and he just would not lose.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to lose.
Nope.
But I want to swing it down to our guest, George Eichhorn here, and your thoughts on this moment, and also your overall thoughts about the Knicks-Heat intense rivalry.
Yeah, very, very good rivalry. It always has been very intense, like Will said. And I'll tell you what, Allen Houston, we had him for 3 seasons in Detroit, and I liked him. He's a shooting guard out of Tennessee, 6'6", 205. When the Pistons drafted him, number 11 overall, I thought it was a really good move by the team. Unfortunately, he left for free agency and spent the last 9 years, folks, of his career with the New York Knicks.
Wow.
But when he left the Pistons that 3rd season, my God, he was averaging almost 20 points a game, and he was doing some really good things. But like I said, he went for that big contract in New York. And, he's one of those players that really had a very good NBA career and is often overlooked. He finished what I looked it up in 63 playoff games. He averaged almost 20 points a game, 19
and he's not talked
points
about.
a game. I mean, he was a playoff performer, 22-point average with the Knicks in 2012. And 2003 season, 22 points. I mean, Allen was a good shooter. He was a really good guy too. I liked him as a person. He was good to interview. He was fun. And, it's like I said, unfortunate for Detroit. They couldn't keep him longer here. But, yeah, that was a hell of a shot. And that was a hell of a way to send a team packing, when they beat Miami. And on his shot was just incredible. So that'll always be remembered. But like I said, we have warm feelings for him in Detroit. It's too bad it couldn't last more than 3 seasons, though. And now he's, a general manager in the G League. So I wish him well with that, with the Knicks G League team.
Right, absolutely. Put it to you like this: he never has to pay for another steak or beer again in New York City. But want to round this up with Scott. Scott, what do you got on this moment in time and overall the Knicks Heat rivalry?
Well, I mean, Allen Houston's a 2-time NBA All-Star, number 1. George and I were at the NBA draft at the Palace in Auburn Hills. We were covering it when Lindsey Hunter and Houston were drafted that day. I'll never forget. It was an unbelievable experience covering an NBA draft over at the Palace. And again, they had a lot of great men there anyways. But then you also think about his number 20 is retired by the Tennessee Volunteers, and he's a 4-time first-team All-Star in the Southeastern Conference. We're talking SEC. But what people got to understand, that anytime you talk about Miami, New York, okay, the road, taking a drive down I-95, it's only about a 19-hour drive off I-95 to get here. And some of Miami's biggest crowds, in fact, a lot of them are attributed to Miami and New York. I mean, you ever go to a Mets game down here at Marlins Park? Guess what? Okay, you got a lot of, when the Yankees come here from time to time, you get them. When Florida Panthers bring on a new bunch of them, but the Rangers are king there. They're always good. So when you think of, and of course, we all know about the Knicks that you're talking about. So, it's like any South Florida tier, you're always going to draw transplants. But that New York-Miami rivalry in general, okay. Oh, let's not forget about the Dolphins taking on the Giants and the Jets. How many New Yorkers there, and how many New Yorkers do you have on the road? I mean, They're also good. New Yorkers are very good for another thing too. They like to honk the horn a lot, okay, because obviously you can't raise their voice in the subways down here, so you need to honk. So they got to be loud in their own way. I know I get Denzel to smile about this one too. But the reality is, 1 versus 8 seed. I think the biggest one, Jacob alluded to it, was when the Panthers beat the Boston Bruins. I mean, those are numbers that are never going to be broken. 65 wins, 100 and how many points there are, I don't care, but 135 points, is that what it is? That to me will be the biggest upset in any sport of all time. So let's face the reality. You know what? You get hot at the right time, you never know what can happen. And that's a situation for which obviously the Knicks were able to feed off of it. More power to them. But I don't think Miami's worried about it because they've only won 3 championships. And how many of the Knicks won? 2. And they were back in the 70s when probably most of you guys weren't even born anyways, right? George and I were alive to be around them. Red Holtzman, you ever heard of him? Pretty good coach. Okay. Dave DeBusschere, former guy in Michigan from the University Detroit area. Pretty good. But Allen Houston has a high IQ, like you mentioned, as a basketball person, which is why he's been able to stay in the league a long time. And by the way, rest in peace, Lance Blanks, another former Piston who passed away earlier this week. I think he was like 57, 58 or whatever. But, you know, hey, 1 versus 8 is becoming uncommon. I don't know. Red Wings had to deal with the San Jose Sharks. So I think you got to be playing hot at the right time because you're playing playoff type of competition over the last few weeks just to get in the playoffs too. You know, I mean, what about that? That's a playoff series that never really gets talked about because of the fact that we're just trying to get in. Also, we're in, and now everybody's 0-0.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and it's something about, and I agree with you. You know, because it's kind of like it's kind of like a how do I put it? It's like a box inside of a box, right? So it's one thing for an 8 seed to knock out a number 1 seed, and that number 1 seed was number 1 for the conference. Okay, but it's another thing to have the best record in the league. So you're the number 1 seed in your conference. You're the best record in your league. You know, that speaks volumes too. And it's a great segue to our next topic, and that is. Shout out to Jacob for this one. NBA head coaches.
You mentioned something. So let me, Jen, sorry. I apologize. Mike Budenholzer got fired because of this.
That's
one.
Exactly why I did it.
Well, for the Bucks.
That's
exactly what we're about to allude to right here. Is okay. All the blame for losing,
take alike.
Credit for winning. Exactly. You know what I mean? Like I was like, hey, I'm getting to it. To it. It's coming right up. You know, but and here's the deal. You know, Bill Belichick actually has said it best. He said, players win game, coaches lose them, which actually alludes to this very topic right here. And let's face it, in basketball, unless you're a Popovich or a Riley or a Phil Jackson or something like that, or unless you follow your local team, no one's really going to follow like that coach like that, but they follow players, you know. Who really was a Frank Vogel fan? But they're LeBron fans, as AD, they're Laker fans, so forth and so on. And Frank Vogel won a title. I want everybody on this panel to keep in mind that the last, let's see, 19, 20, 21, 3 straight NBA champion head coaches have been fired as of today. Now, here's the deal. It's subjective whether you think that Mike Budenholzer got a raw deal or not. Some will tell you he was already on his way out the door the year that he won the title. So he bought himself a few more years. You know, others may say, well, it was unjustified. I believe it was unjustified because he just won a title 2 years ago, you know. Now, I will say this much. Granted, yes, they were without Giannis for what, 1 or 2 of those games? But when you're that team and you got the best record in the league, you cannot get dominated 4-1, you know. So I do see both sides of the fence here. But get back to the topic at hand, and I want to start off with Will. On a scale of 1 to 10, as far as a winning season all the way to the NBA Finals, how much credit do you think the coach gets if they're not named Popovich, Riley, or Phil Jackson?
3. Very small. Very, 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 very small. They don't get a lot of love. They get blamed for poor schemes, player limitations, bad execution, player mistakes, and firing them isn't always the answer. There could be a deeper problem. Look at Mark Jackson. Not saying Steve Kerr's a bad coach for the Warriors, but look at Mark Jackson. He was a really good coach of the Warriors, and then they're like, you know what? We're going to go a different way. Let's see. Who else? Nick Nurse, Budenholzer. There have been so many coaches that have been the victim of a lot of hate. And it's probably just players ranting to going to the ownership and knocking on the door and like, come in and be like, so-and-so does not know to coach the team. Like, no offense. I didn't think Steve Nash was going to be an amazing head coach. I didn't think he was going to be the worst head coach. But literally you can tell that a lot of the players were not happy. They were like, yeah, this guy doesn't know anything about basketball. But yeah, I would say a 3 because they get just ridiculed, and they only get ridiculed. They don't get praised for all the things they did, like, oh, we beat the mark at all-time scoring for a season for the team, or all-time rebounds, or all-time assists, or we've won the most games at home during the year of all time, or we won our conference 3 to 4 years in a row. No, they get ridiculed, just ridiculed and ridiculed. So it's a raw deal. I agree with you. I think Budenholzer got pushed out, which is annoying because he won a title. And like, yes, you got beat 4-1, and that's very inexcusable. But dude, I swear the leashes for the NBA coaches is very, very small.
Yeah. And you know what? And I'll say this much. If Giannis never wins another championship in his career, it might answer the question as to whether Budenholzer should have been fired or not.
And he may leave. Who knows? One last thing. Who knows? He may not like the next coach and be like, "I'm leaving. I wanted Budenholzer to stay."
Right. That is true. He could very well be on his side. But, I wanted to switch it over to Jacob here. And it's funny, Will, during your commentary, I was remembering, so a couple of weeks ago, we had George Eichhorn and Scott cover Jerry Sloan, and I remember that he actually left Utah because of a conflict. I remember distinctly, it was a conflict with Deron Williams, and I held the biggest thing against him. Like, who the hell are you? You know what I mean? He's a legendary coach, and then I'm not saying he's a nobody, but this is Jerry Sloan. You know what I mean? And so
many players love to run coaches out of the building, and I'm like, who are you to say anything?
Exactly, Will. And the thing is I was like, okay, he ran a legendary coach out of the building, and then since that time period, D Will turned into D can't and D won't. So on to Jacob. And other than the top three coaches that I mentioned, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much credit does a coach get for winning?
Because of emotional nitwit idiot fans, 1. And I call them emotional nitwits. And I'm talking about every sport. It's like, let me ask these questions to the emotional nitwit fans who keep wanting to run every coach out. Who's the one that sets the system every single year? Who's the one working with the GM to get the players that you keep talking about was the reason for they won the title in the first place? Who's the one helping the kids that are the 10th, 11th, or 12th man on the thing to improve their game? Who's doing all of that? Who's got all the pressure in the world on them? Who's got all of this? It's not you fans. It's not you morons, idiots, emotional nitwits. It's not you. I take this personal because I want to be a coach. I've done volunteer coach. I want to be a coach. I don't want to hear from fans who all they do is buy the seats, maybe the merchandise, and don't know anything. They don't know how to set a system up. They don't know how to set a defense up, an offense up. They don't know they don't know who's struggling, what's struggling. They see 10% of the game. 10%. You know what they see? They see shot. They see maybe steal, maybe rebound. They don't see the rotations. They don't see anything. They don't see what's on the bench and off. They don't see those things to understand, to want to say, oh, I want to get rid of this coach or that coach. They don't know. These front offices got to quit listening to fans everywhere, all sports. Quit listening to them. Ignore them. If you have to have 10 years of losing, you do it. Before the thing, I'm not saying that for real. They have to go, they have to go. I'm just saying I'm sick and tired of fans getting their way. Budenholzer has had 360-win seasons, an NBA title, 4 conference finals. He is one of the best coaches we've seen in this era. Fans do not know anything. So it's got to, and he'll get nothing. He'll get no credit. But Budenholzer deserves every credit for every year and every blame for everything because it's called winning and losing. There's your blame. There's your credit. Period. End of story.
Absolutely.
Well done,
I felt every word of that commentary. And now, this, and for furthermore of intensity of this, tune in to Jacob Christner when he talks about the Chicago Bears and Justin Fields. More to come on that. But I want to swing it to Big George down here. And same question, all right? Total transparency. Other than the top 3 coaches I named, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much credit does the head coach get for winning?
2. I'll go with 2.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
He's
Yeah.
being generous.
I mean, Jacob and Will, you guys nailed it. I mean, the coach is always the scorn of the fans. The coach is always the scorn behind the scenes of some angry players, and obviously the owners too. They say that their stake is high, and it is. They own the team, but there's too many owners out there that are meddling with these type of decisions as well. We talked about earlier about Larry Brown getting bounced by Detroit, which came as a shock to a lot of people after the loss to the Spurs in the finals. We had a coach named Rick Carlisle who supposedly, and Scott probably remembers this, supposedly didn't want front office people watching his practices, and in fact banned those front office people from coming to practice as one of the reasons why they got rid of him, even though he was a 50-game winner and like Flip Saunders won 50 games every year for Detroit. But all I'm saying is that there's all types of reasons why they fire a coach, but I don't believe half of them. Okay, I really don't. One guy who really survived in Detroit is our good friend, the departed Chuck Daly, and Chuck Daly was a great coach, obviously for the back-to-back champion Pistons, and went out on a high note and unfortunately passed away several years ago. But Chuck Daly was one of the guys that he had a special knack of being able to control his players, being able to control the media, being able to control the front office. And you don't see guys like that very often. But that being said, yes, there are too many reasons why fans are upset. They don't know anything about what's going on. Like you said, Jacob, owners meddling, this guy, we got to get a new coach. The fans are angry. It's a sad situation in pro sports, especially the NBA, when guys are dumped like this and dumped upon as head coaches. I'm sick and tired of it as well. It's got to stop. When it will stop, we don't know.
Absolutely.
I've got a question for the panel after Scott's done.
Okay. And lastly, we'll round it up with Scott. Same question. On a scale of, maybe you'll be a little generous, maybe you won't, but on a scale of 1 to 10, other than the top 3 coaches that I mentioned, how much credit does a head coach really get for winning?
Well, you're right. I'm going to be different this time, and I'll tell you what. If I had to answer this question, I personally would make it a 5. And I'll tell you why. Hear me out. Some of these decisions work out. Case in point, who was the head coach that preceded the Lakers before Pat Riley took over? Do you know?
Oh, you're talking about Jack?
No.
Well, before Pat Riley, right?
Yeah.
That's Westhead.
Yep, there you go. Worked out, didn't it? What about when Doug Hollins was let go for Phil Jackson? Well, of course, Michael might have been behind it, but who did Michael hire when he went over to the Wizards? He brought in Doug Collins. Now, I will give you this much, okay, Jacob. I would ignore everything the fans, they don't know what they're talking about. Well, that's why I'm so glad that I can be in the press box. I don't have to sit next to these people. You know how many alcoholic beverages that they're consumed. They're paying their money, so they're going to be loud and boisterous. I think what you have to do, though, is, well, okay, whatever. But you have to take it on a case-by-case basis. That's what you have to do. Every situation being what it is. Now, we're talking about the Milwaukee Bucks, right? Correct? Because obviously that lit up this topic called the firestorm, right? So here's the deal. The Milwaukee Bucks' only 2 championship coaches are Larry Costello and now Mike Budenholzer, and they have 2 championships in their history. But when you think about the Bucks situation, you've got an owner that's spending a lot of money on these players, right? You follow me? And they only got 1 out of 5 titles. But what we're failing to understand in this whole thing is they have a highly coveted assistant coach that everybody's looking to interview. Right, George? Aren't the Pistons looking at one of their assistant coaches?
Yep.
Nobody. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Milwaukee Bucks hire this guy to be their new head coach. I wouldn't. Okay, think about it for a minute. What happened with Boston? Okay, Ime Udoka got run out of town and he got rehired. They brought Joe Mazzulla in there, and he's got him in the playoffs, and he's got him deep into the playoffs. So I think that for the most part, a lot of coaches do get a lot of blame, but I truly believe you have to evaluate it on a case by case basis, depending on the owner. And remember, the one thing George did mention is before Chuck Daly got hired, when he did, the Pistons were coveting him before then, and he turned them down. Right, George?
Yeah, it sure did.
So when you put the sum of the whole and the whole of the parts, case by case is what you should get out of it. That's why I'm a little bit. Larry Brown ran himself out of town. That wasn't ownership's fault. It really wasn't. You're looking for another job, right? See ya. Okay. Get used to the subway instead of I-94. Okay. It doesn't make any difference. Okay. So that's his own darn fault. What has he done since he left there? Nothing, right?
That's fair.
Being a professional mover. So again, I don't want to, so that's just one of those kinds of things where, in the case of Rick Carlisle, he didn't want his bosses to look. Let me ask you, George, do you think that the Pistons could have won a title with Rick Carlisle?
I don't know, Scott. I mean, I think they could have. I do
too. That's where I'm going. So Rick Carlisle was in his first coaching job, right? I know you're looking at the clock, Dan. I'm almost done. Okay. He was a first-time coach, and he proceeded to win a championship, and he's had a lengthy coaching career in the NBA, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody else liked him. Indiana won with him. Dallas did. He'll get Indiana turned around again. So case by case is the way I'm going to answer it. I'll even go as high as 5 or 6 because I think the thing is you just have to understand what happened afterwards in some cases or not. Vogel's situation was a joke, okay? And Budenholzer, to me, I think it's questionable he'll land again. It's not like you're watching the Detroit Lions where after you leave, nobody gets hired. No, somebody will get hired here. Pistons go to get cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I definitely, see your side of the fence on that one because, there are cases where, it did work out. Obviously, you bring in a coach, and even if they win like their first year, like, it'd be amazing, right? Or what was it? The Celtics were just in the finals, right? And that was his first year. So, I mean, now I know that came on the heels of a scandal, but I mean, that's neither here nor there. But yes, you do have some times where it works out, but you do acknowledge that more often than not, it doesn't.
Yeah, but you know what? Ime Udoka made it force his hand. I mean, everybody can say it works out and doesn't work out, but again, remember this: hashtag it if you do it case by case basis.
True, absolutely, case by case basis. So actually, we have about 2.5 minutes left. We're gonna wrap up. Our next topic Jacob, we'll get to that one next week. Is that okay with you?
Fine.
Except with the Sacramento Kings, up until Mike Brown.
And Scott and Scott is right. Charles Lee is the one that everybody's looking at on the Milwaukee sidelines. Pistons owner Tom Gores is going to interview him in Los Angeles this week. So Milwaukee may grab him first as head coach, but Charles Lee is sought after. Yeah.
All right. And so that wraps up our show. Thanks to everybody who watched, and be sure you hit that like and subscribe button to this episode in Sideline Sports. Around the Horn. Jacob, where can everyone find you?
Here Sunday nights, Monday nights pundit views. Off Tuesdays, Wednesday nights 3 shows. Pundit, the Sports Exchange with Scott, by the way, and then Confidential. Thursdays, sometimes we're working on it. Yin and Yang. Fridays, once in a while, one called Gauntlet. Also, just started up a Twitch. I just started up a Patreon, and I've got a Substack. And I'm also on. I'm also writing, and I also write for the sports for the South Tribune, the South Florida Tribune, and for the Inscriber.
Excellent. Well, where can everyone find you, bud?
You guys can find me here on Sunday nights. Whenever Scott has shows on his network, the South Florida Tribune, you guys can always see me making comments, talking about the topics they're talking about. Friday, occasionally I'm on the Gauntlet, and that's it.
All right. And then our guest, George, sir, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, you can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com. You can reach me on LinkedIn under my name, and on Twitter at SandGSports99. I authored a book called Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air, and there's a link to purchase that book at the South Florida Tribune website. I write under the Motor City Tribune, and join Scott on 108 Stitches and the Sports Exchange and other shows. And I'm looking forward to always coming on this show whenever you guys need something, and appreciate the offer. And thanks for having me.
Not a problem.
Sir.
Thanks for being on. And last but not least, Scott, where can everybody find you?
Well, since I was long-winded on every answer you threw at me, I'll just make it short and simple if I'm even capable of doing that. All right. Please subscribe, no charge, to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. And again, South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, you'll find all the shows that we carry on the network.
Wait a minute.
Excellent.
You charged me for subscribing? No.
What's that?
What's that about?
I give you fringe benefits.
Jacob, but your price was $3.99.
Yeah.
No,
I
Okay.
paid
Jacob gets-
$5.99.
everybody on Sideline Sports gets fringe benefits. That's all I have to say.
I thought he charged Jacob because Jacob's a Bears fan.
True.
It's me going.
Hey, listen, I married a Packers girl. What are you talking about? So what the works out pretty well too. She's the only
Yeah.
one that can keep me in line of all the people on this planet.
Yep.
Packers
And,
fan shanks the Lions guy every time he gets into trouble medically, among other things. So that's okay. I'll take that kind of sack all day long.
hey, there you go.
There you go.
Well, for Jacob Christner, Will Vogel, Scott Morganroth, and George Eichhorn, I am Denzel
Roth.
Snipes. Morganroth, I said it. I said Roth. Roth. Morgan Roth. And George Eichhorn, I am Denzel Snipes, and we will see you all in 7 days. Y'all have fun. Take care.
I'd shave off my head, but my barber did it.